All right, today we're going to take a look at something really cool, a Korean language textbook that's all about making learning fun and super accessible for kids.
It's a huge question for any parent or teacher, right? How do you make learning a whole new language feel less like a chore and more like a real adventure for a kid? I mean, how do you get past just memorizing letters and sounds and turn it into something they actually want to do?
Well, for the folks who created this textbook called Macham Hangugyo O, which basically means customized Korean, the answer is all about being practical, super engaging, and really rich in culture. So let's dive in and see exactly how they pull that off.
Okay, first things first. Let's talk about who this textbook is actually for. Because it's not just a generic Korean book for anybody. Nope, it has a very specific goal in mind.
This book, Customized Korean, was made with a very particular student in mind. English-speaking kids, usually in the lower elementary grades, who are attending Korean schools outside of Korea. It's a resource that's totally tailored to their situation, for kids who are growing up in a different country but really want to connect with their Korean heritage.
So what's the big idea behind the whole thing? It's pretty simple, really. Make the language feel useful and fun, right from the very beginning. The main goal is to make kids feel like, hey, Korean is exciting and I can totally do this, instead of making it feel all scary and complicated.
The whole approach really boils down to three key things. First, they focus on sentence patterns you can actually use, not getting bogged down in complicated grammar rules. That means kids can start talking way faster. Second, it uses what's called the Heyo style of speaking, and we'll get into what that is in just a second. And third, they use a really clean, simple font, which makes it a breeze for young kids to read and practice writing.
Okay, so let's zoom in on that second point, the Heyo style. Why is this such a big deal? Well, it's because this is the sentence ending you hear all the time in everyday Korean. It's polite, but it's also friendly and kind of informal. The magic here is that a kid can learn a phrase in class and then go use it right away with their friends, with their family. It's all about instant, real-world communication.
So that's the philosophy. But what does an actual lesson look like? Let's take a peek inside and see how it's all structured.
All right, so every single unit follows these 5 simple steps. First up is Let's Learn, which is where they introduce all the new words and sentences. Then you get right into practicing with Let's Listen, Let's Talk, and Let's Write. But my favorite part? Every single lesson ends with this awesome section, Let's Look at Korean Culture. It's this really complete cycle, taking you from seeing something new all the way to using it and understanding its context.
And here's something that's a total game changer. Everything, from the vocabulary to the instructions, has English translations. This is amazing, not just for the student, but think about the parents. Even if they aren't fluent in Korean, they can still help out. It really brings the whole family into the learning process.
Okay, now let's talk about what I think is the most special thing about this textbook, how it weaves culture into everything. And I'm not talking about just a little fun fact at the end of a chapter. No, here it's a central part of how you learn.
That Let's Look at Korean Culture section we mentioned, its whole purpose is to show how the language connects to the everyday lives of people in Korea. So it's not just about listing facts like, this is a holiday or this is a food. The real goal is to get kids thinking, to have them compare Korean culture with their own culture. It's all about building what the creators call an open mind towards the world. Pretty cool, right?
Here, check out this amazing example right from the book. It points out that in Korea, a kid will often call their mom 우리 엄마. Now, that literally translates to our mom, not my mom. And you might be thinking, why? Well, the book explains that this tiny little word choice actually reflects a huge cultural value, the importance of community and living together. It just goes to show you, language is so much more than just words. It's a peek into a whole different way of seeing the world.
And this idea of 우리, or our, you see it everywhere. People will say our house or our country, even when they're just talking about themselves. It's just a perfect example of how that community-focused mindset is baked right into the language itself.
So, let's wrap this up. When you put it all together, what's the main takeaway here? What makes this textbook so special? While the strategy is pretty brilliant. First, it's all about practical language you can use immediately. Second, it's a gentle learning curve, using fun activities to build up a kid's confidence. Third, it forges that all-important cultural connection, which really makes the language come alive. And finally, it's super parent-friendly, giving them everything they need to help out at home and be part of the adventure.
And that really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it?
What this textbook really shows us is that maybe the secret to learning a language, or really learning anything, isn't just about memorizing facts. What if the real key is finding a meaningful connection? A connection to how people actually live, to their culture, and to each other.